I can introduce myself personally by saying my name is Miqhi-Miqx. So you can use either name, Miqhi or Mix, or you can use both together. I'm a non-binary person, and a few of us have been involved in creating queer community or queer ventures and projects for some time together. So we started, I guess, as the current group who are organising the Queer Spirit Festival, first met, I think, all together at the Queer Pagan Camp, which used to be organised every summer, every August usually, by a lovely informal group of queer pagans. And at that particular event, that camp, you had to identify, you were asked to identify as both queer and pagan. And of course that's fine for those that do, but we also felt, a group of us also felt, that there was room for expansion into people who didn't necessarily identify as either of those two things. So we started forming a group called the Queer Dome, which is here at this festival now. For people who haven't seen it yet, there's a rainbow tent the other side of the healing circle from here, diagonally opposite from the healing circle. And we have our rainbow tent there, which we call the Queer Dome. It's not a dome anymore. We used to have a dome. It's now a rainbow bell tent. We still do have a dome, but we don't bring it to this festival because it's big and there's not enough room here really to fit inside that relatively small space that we have there. So we do have a dome, and it's still called the Queer Dome, and we have the Queer Dome project. And we take that project around to a lot of different festivals or events, just to engage with the public really, who may want to talk about queer issues, even if you don't identify as queer. You might want to ask why we use that word, what it means to you, what it means to us, or indeed if you're a member of any kind of LGBT community that wants to engage in a discussion with us, or if you're a potential ally, you might want to engage in a process of dialogue with us, or if indeed you're just a curious person who wants to know more, then we're very welcome to engage with anybody at all and talk about any topic at all, including relationships, projects, communities, and all these kinds of things that exist to support each other and make our life together more easy and more enjoyable. We're very focused on enjoying ourselves, because life is primarily for having a lovely time together. Although we have campaigns and we have inspirations and we have spirituality and sexuality, all of this is to help us have a life that is productive, creative and enjoyable together, like any human being wants really. And of course a lot of human beings get their sustenance, if you're not a queer human being, you get your sustenance from very, very many mainstream activities, very many festivals, projects, your blood family, your community where you live. There's lots of things that support people who are not identified as queer. Just in the ordinary community, you've been involved in all sorts of different social groups, in parties, communities and projects. There are so many in the mainstream society. Now if you're queer identified, you can of course join in with all of those other things. Of course you are, of course you can. But very many of us find that in those kinds of societies and spaces we feel a bit marginalised, like people don't really understand where we're coming from or what we're about, and they start questioning us about why we're there and what we're doing, and that gets to be a bit tiring, to be honest. That gets a little bit wearing on the nerves after you've gone through it umpteen times, that you appear in a situation in a mainstream society where you constantly get questioned about your identity, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and your whole backstory, your relationships, and people can be asking very intrusive questions. And to be honest, most of the time I don't mind, but it does get a little bit tiring to be in those kind of settings. So it's only natural that we want to congregate together as queer identified people, or as people who are exploring that identity, and actually find out what it means to us to have a community that supports each other, and a community that enriches each other, and a community that celebrates each other as a a queer spiritual community. And we use the word spirit in the broadest sense of the word, like the spirit of queer, the spirit of energy, the spirit of life, the spirit of activity, the spirit of vitality, the spirit of pure energy. So we don't use it in a dogmatic sense, like you have to belong to a religion or a cult, or have yourself identified in some way with some dogma, but we use spirit in the broadest sense possible. And at this point I'm going to introduce my fellow collaborator in the Queer Spirit Festival. That is Shokti, who's sitting over there. And Shokti, you can talk a little about yourself and how you came to be involved in the Queer Spirit community.
Thank you very much, Miqhi. It's great to be here. Hello everybody. Thanks for coming to Speakers Forum today. So I'm Shokti. I live in South London. I'm a country boy. Came to London at 21 when I came out, looking for love, looking for fun. And I also found illness and transformation, just a few journeys, a few years into my path. I'm an AIDS survivor. I was diagnosed HIV positive at a young age, had full-blown AIDS, but took that experience with AIDS as a catalyst for me to explore my spiritual self, explore spiritual reality, and undertake a personal transformation. So since I survived, came through that journey, but with a sense that we are part of a bigger consciousness, we're part of a wholeness here on this planet. And since then I've just been searching for other people also who have that awareness, that experience, that understanding in life. And I'm a historian by education, so I went into studying the humanities history of searching for the meaning of life. And what that turned up for me, that in cultures around the world, pre-Christian cultures around the entire world, people who were stood between the genders, people who were same-sex attracted erotically, they were associated with magic, with mysticism, with temple service, with the holy life, with monasticism. Most cultures of this world saw queerness as a spiritual trait, not a sexual trait. And this whole invention of heterosexual and homosexual in the late 19th century, I say it as a totalitarian mind control set that's trying to make us fit into boxes which are not natural and dividing us up from each other, trying to reduce us to the sexual definition. But the sexual definition is only one of your chakras. With all our 7 chakras. Look at the history of queer people in the world, the contribution that they've made to culture, to art, to theatre, over the centuries. Queerness brings creative energy into the world. Because queerness is the doorway to the inner creativity in all of us, the union of the male and female within, the masculine and feminine within all of us, recognizing that we are beings with all these aspects. And since the 70s, 80s, there's been a strong urge in the feminist movement to break down old masculine norms, for women to gain sort of that masculine power. And that's been a phenomenal journey that women have undertaken in the last 5 decades. But maybe it's like a balance to that. Mother Nature needs men to catch up. She's currently producing a lot of men who have got such strong feminine energy bursting in them that they want to become women. Literally, the culture does not say you can be a man with a strong inner woman. The culture will only accept you if you become a woman. That's the culture we seek to change, to recognize as queer spirits, as radical fairies, as frankly as humans. We are all a combination of male, female, of plant, animal, mineral, spirit, earth. We're a combination of a unity of polarities, and that's what makes us live and breathe and exist in this planet. So this will be our 5th Queer Spirit this August. We had 600 people along last year. We expect to get more than that this year. It's a kind of a workshop-driven festival, in that people come for experiences. I organise the workshop schedule there, and I've like 60 facilitators. I just keep them saying yes to them. So yeah, you can have a spot outside because I want to bring everyone together. I want to show the world that this is what some queer people are doing. We are turning the page. And what's more, we are lesbians, gay men, bisexuals, transsexuals, celebrating our diversity, celebrating our differences and our commonalities. And for me, the biggest commonality is the repression of our kind by patriarchal religion. That's what we have in common, that in the goddess religions, in the mother religions, we were all accepted. She accepted all kinds of people. Not only we were accepted, we were even her priests, her sacred ones, her holy servants. Now, some of the ancient temples, I'll finish with this, to go to the temple and have sex with one of the priestesses was to receive a blessing from the gods. Our blessings from the gods. Thank you.
Thank you, Shokti. We are a very diverse group. As I say, there's no actual dogma involved in this. And part of the joy of our diversity is that we can have a lot of different workshop sessions. We have not just one, but several workshop domes where we have discussions. We have a sacred sexuality area where people, as Shokti said, can go to celebrate their sexuality in a positive way that's seen as special and sacred as well as physically enjoyable. And I organise another area, which is the campaigns and communities area. So we invite into this area people who are forming either intentional or informal communities to come and speak or have presentations on their community, and also people who are running different queer campaigns or allied campaigns like eco campaigns or other kind of political areas of campaigning. Because we are whole human beings, we don't exist only in a vacuum of sexuality or sacred spirit, but we're also engaging in the physical world in terms of actual politics, in terms of trying to change the world to be a better place for everybody, not just for queer people. And I was one of the people in Britain who in the early 70s were forming the Gay Liberation Front. And our slogan at that time was liberation for all. It wasn't just about liberation for gay people. It wasn't just that we saw as gay people we want to do as we like. We want to extend this feeling of liberation to everybody, to have this ability to feel empowered, to live the life that you choose in a way that doesn't impact harmfully on other people, but to be liberated to choose that way of life for everybody, so that we're open to everybody to have this option without the sense of indoctrination or conformism that most of us get trained into by the education system or by mainstream media or by the dogmas that are fed to us by religion or politics or science. So this is a way of actually being the thin end of the wedge, not just for queer people, but for the whole of society, to have a whole cultural change and ultimately a complete system change for all the systems across the world. And of course we have to start where we are. So we start with the people that we are and recognizing our comrades, our supporters, whoever we are, however we identify. We can have comrades and supporters across the whole spectrum, but we need to consolidate that support because we're still, culturally speaking, very much in the minority, very much under the possibility of a pushback, under the possibility of an attack. And as we've seen even quite recently in many countries, under the threat of the laws still being newly enacted against us, new laws passed against us in Africa, in South America, in other places, and even in this country, there are new laws coming in to restrict how we talk to our children about sexuality, which can impact very much on our lives as queer people. It can impact very seriously, not just in innocent terms, like you can't talk to your children about this stuff, but those children can then suffer self-harm because no one's talking to them about this stuff. Those children can then suffer bullying because no one's talking to them about this stuff. Those children can then suffer shame and difficulty in having a creative, solid, healthy life because of the way that they're being treated. And other children who are not necessarily queer can grow up believing it's okay to attack people who have this identity. And so, even as we speak now, we're suffering in many parts of the world, and indeed in this country, in America, in the so-called civilized West, we're suffering this pushback. having come through a period when we thought liberation for all was possible through the feminist movement, through the black consciousness movement, through the sense of actually gaining some of this consciousness spread throughout our society, we're now finding that the right wing and many other factors who want to come back against us and push back to say these are not our values, we can't stand this any longer, we want to reassert our right to have control over your thoughts, have control over your body, have control over your behavior. So it's essential that we keep building these places like the Queer Spread Festival, like here at Small World, like in many other festivals. We keep having to build these places to reach out to people who are potential allies and potential friends, and who knows, potential queer people in your own lives who can explore different identities safely and securely in the knowledge that we have our support, peer structures, and indeed develop structures where we can support ourselves in a more grounded way, not just in a casual way where we meet once in a while, but in a grounded way where we can actually have a living queer network, not just in this country, not just in London, not just in Kent, but across the whole country, and indeed ultimately across the whole world. We are an international group after all. We exist in all communities, in all times, in all spaces, some more liberated than others. And here in this country, we are, in global terms, more liberated than many others. We have a duty to many of the people who are less privileged and less able to engage with these things. We have a duty as slightly more privileged than those to actually, first of all, grow in our solidarity, and second, having grown in our solidarity, then explore and extend that helping hand to others across the world who are perhaps less secure and less able to do what we can do as relatively able-bodied and relatively secure people, having explored that our sexuality and our spirituality. We can then, in confidence in our stronger community, reach out not just from a privileged point of view, but a point of view of being conscious of how we can help others. And this is what our festival is about. This is why we come together as a public festival rather than as a little private thing that's tucked away somewhere. We're advertised publicly so that anyone can find us, anyone can join us, and we are open to all ranges of economy. This is one of the things that we are radical about. We are actually open so that anyone can volunteer and get a free ticket, helping out in whatever capacity. Don't have to be super hard working. You can help out and get a free ticket or a supported ticket. If you have the money and the means of paying, we welcome that, of course. But if you don't have that privilege of being able to afford a full price ticket or a supporter ticket, you can still be part of the festival as a volunteer, or indeed as a disabled person we have. If you don't have capacity to volunteer in whatever way, then we can support your involvement in the festival, and indeed we welcome that from all sectors of society. So this is our way of being as inclusive as we can, and indeed, as I say, we welcome relatives and friends of queer people so we can see how we fit into the wider society, welcoming in our relatives and friends to show them what our queer society is like. Many of us have relatives and friends who don't get the chance to actually experience what our queer lives are like because they see us as quite isolated. Even our most supportive relatives and friends might see us as a bit weird or a bit peculiar in some capacity. When they see us as part of a wider community, integrated into this spectrum of diverse people, enjoying ourselves, thriving, celebrating, being wonderful together, being relaxed together in a safe space. When our allies and friends see us in this capacity, our family and friends can then begin to appreciate more fully how we are as rounded, beautiful people that we are. I'm going to break off now and maybe ask people who are here sitting amongst us if they have any questions or queries that they would like us to follow up on. Us, the two of us, having given a little introduction as to what we're doing and why we're doing it. Maybe you've got some questions or comments, or you have your own point of view that you'd like to share. It may differ from our point of view. As I say, we're welcome to diverse opinions. So if you'd like to just speak through the microphone, just raise your hand and I'll pass the microphone to you. Here we go. And just introduce yourself by name, please.
Hello, I'm Skylar. My question is, when and where is the Queer Spirit Festival?
Glad you asked that. We have some flyers here. Would you like to pass them around? And we also have some little cards for people who don't want flyers. For the people who are not picking up a flyer or a card, I will say out loud, our Queer Spirit Festival is in Devon. We have a lovely site that opens to the public on the 15th of August. If you're a volunteer or you want to help in some way set up the festival, then you can arrive before the 15th of August. There's still capacity for us to take volunteers. If you haven't got a card in front of you, you have to go on site to look at queerspirit.net, and you'll see the dates and the capacities for us to take up volunteers there. We last from Thursday the 15th, and we close on Monday morning, I think that's the 19th of August. And we're not far from a train station. We're quite close to Tiverton Parkway train station, so you can get there by public transport. And then hopefully we can sort out some other transport from Tiverton Parkway to the site. We have a beautiful site. Would you like to talk about the site, Shokti?
Sure. Bridwell Park is our third site. The festival started in Wiltshire in 2016. There we had 2 festivals there. Then we were in 2019 in Northamptonshire, next to Silverstone Racecourse. With Grand Prix practice cars going on all day. Great, you're in your meditations and so I was like, we've got to find a better site, we've got to find a new site, and I prayed really hard to the goddess after 2019, and it was 4 years before we came back. 2023 was our first one post-pandemic, but this came time for the right piece of land to come manifest for us. Bridwell Park has only been open to the public for about 10 years. Before that it was a private deer park. The deer still live there. We share the park with a herd of deer roaming around. It's been so cared for over the centuries. There are 900-year-old oak trees through the middle of the park, and it's a beautiful flat piece of land to camp on. There's a lake, there's woods, there's springs. There's Bridwell Park because it would have been Bridie's Well, Bridget's Well, and the springs are still active. And we have some water fairies getting very excited about doing spring blessings and rituals there. So it's an element-based festival. We think we can bring all queer people together, whatever your belief system or lack of. Through elemental creation, we can come together and experience our oneness. Okay, so we have the big fire circles going through the night. We have the water blessings. We have obviously the earth of the space and the air of the workshops. People really come there to learn things, meet other people, experience new things. We have DJs too, bands too, singer-songwriters, cabarets, and one of our unique selling points is the sacred temple of sacred sexuality. I don't think any other festival has this in the world. And if you can imagine, it's an all-queer 24-hour temple of sacred sexuality. Facilitated workshops during the day, then a ceremony of some kind in the evening to open up the night space, and then free-flow night space, which we have angels on duty all night looking after the space, making sure everything's kosher. But yep, that's... oh, did I say that? Who am I channeling? Thanks. So the land is really special. It's the first time it's ever held a festival. We're the first person on the land. They didn't know what to expect, you know, and they could have got anything, but they got us, and they were super blown away by just how chilled out, friendly, easygoing, clean, tidy everybody was. At the opening ceremony, because of the herd of deer, I appealed to everybody, can we do a litter-free festival? No litter policy. And everybody did exactly that. Hands in the air, yeah, and it worked. It happened. We had no rubbish around our festival. Hello! Queer Spirit Festival. Would you like to speak something about your experience there, maybe? Could you think of a few words for us, perhaps?
A few words.
When did you come to Queer Spirit?
I came for the first one, and then 2 years later.
Right, 2 of them. Well, I hope we might see you back again for the 5th one.
I'm buying my ticket on Monday. Highly recommend.
And as we should say that we have a kids area as well that's curated especially for children. And this was one of the difficulties for some queer people. I will say that quite frankly. Some people were not quite sure how having a sacred sexuality area and a kids area at the same festival would work. Some people were very afraid of the publicity that that might attract because, you know, when people hear the word queer, it doesn't go in their minds with the word kids. So I will say that it's worked out very well. We've actually had no issues that I'm aware of because the kids area is obviously separate from the sacred sexuality area and both are carefully curated by experienced people. So, and it's also worth bearing in mind that many queer people actually do have kids. You know, and many queer spaces don't cater for this reality because so we very much wanted right from the get-go to have a space where people who do have children in their care are able to bring their children in their care. Unfortunately, we cannot extend that to dogs and pets as well, unless they're guide dogs. Yeah, well, because we have a limited number there. We can have dogs. Well, we can have dogs now on leads. But
It's dog friendly. Even though there's deer there, as long as the dogs are kept on leads, we actually have a site that is dog friendly, and it worked last year. It was so beautiful. I'm really happy to invite our canine friends along to our events. It's sad we're on sites where they're not welcome. I guess keeping them on the leads prevents any of the things that can happen when you get lots of dogs at festival. Bring your pets.
So are there any more questions on that one? Sorry, I didn't see you there. Your name?
Not specifically on what you've just been saying. I should explain, I suppose, that I'm actually a parliamentary candidate for the upcoming election, so maybe you'll understand why this is coming in. Is that, and I've listened to a few specialist groups around and special interest groups, and they bring up what is the most important subject that we've ever faced, probably since the Cold War. I mean, maybe even a couple of wars. And they mention it and then they sort of skip past it and that time. So every so often you hear someone say, yeah, so we've got to change the system. Well, that's absolutely right. But the urgency seems to be lost on most people because the system needs to be changed in order to save the planet. You know, and it's around growth, it's around GDP, all that has to change dramatically. And it's fairly urgent. And I noticed that what we all do is we come to these places and we have a good time and enjoy our lives. But this threat's still hanging over. Is it time we actually adopted some very real strategies to directly challenge the system? Which I'm going to shout a few slogans when I'm standing in that'll be. Anyway, what do you think?
Bang on. I think, I suspect there's kind of a lack of gay identified men in the activist movement. In politics I may be wrong. But I want to mention Edward Carpenter, the 19th century Victorian philosopher, gay philosopher, poet. His vision of gay people, who he called the Uranians, was that our mission in the world is to bring love and relationship to the center of human life and replace money and finance there. That gay people have a crucial role in teaching the world that love is what matters. And I guess that comes from when we hear from our history. Our love has been denied for so long, it's been forced to feel shame for so long. But as we reclaim our history and discover our power, I believe we can become a force for that in the world. So I believe spirituality without a political goal is just self-indulgence. And politics without spirituality is just fiddling while Nero burns. While feeling like Nero while Rome burns, yeah?
Yes, I think that's a really important question. I'm very much about system change, and I think from my experience as a person is that it's hard to get system change without first cultural change. I think that's where it begins. People have got to believe in system change as being possible and being feasible. I think a lot of the impact of, oh, let's have system change, is that people, immediate reaction is fear, because I'm going to lose something. If I have system change, I'm going to lose my privileges, I'm going to lose this, I'm going to lose that. And therefore, when you talk about system change, it produces this reaction of fear. If we talk about cultural change, how we can love each other better, how we can care for each other better, how we can focus on ways of supporting each other that don't rely exclusively on money and privilege, then I think people begin to feel a little bit easier about system change. They begin to see how it's actually going to work. Most of the time, most of my life, all the things I've said is people get back to me and say, well, you're an idealist, this isn't possible. People aren't like this. You're not living in the real world. You know, this kind of reaction you get so often. So we have to make it real, so that people can see how real it can be, how we can have living communities that do actually support each other, not on the basis of money, but on the basis of love and care. Once people see that this works, people can see, oh yes, of course it's possible in these limited little communities, yes, it's possible in these little niche areas, and then we say from there, okay, we move outwards from there to building a transition town, or a bigger community, or a wider network. In fact, we can build a global network, and this then begins to catch fire as a real possibility. And even if it doesn't happen here in this country, there will be countries in the world which actually model this. There are places in the world that are actually modeling eco-communities, permaculture communities, that are not just based on living with the land in harmony, which of course is super important, don't deny that at all. But I believe we cannot get permaculture communities working properly unless we get the human eco-culture going as well, because it's down to the humans to create the permaculture, and if we don't have humans working in harmony together, then the eco-permaculture side of it will either become hierarchical and go poisonous in some way, or it just won't work in a functional way. It'll become another method of dominating the land and people. So I think these things are absolutely feasible, but we actually have to work on technologies. And that's the word I use for some of these processes that we use. They are actually human technologies. We have to work on how we have discussion groups. You know, these community agreements that I talked about in my earlier talk this morning. We have to work out how we make community agreements, how we manage those community agreements, so they aren't, in inverted commas, they aren't policed, but they're handled with respect by all of us, because all of us buy into the community agreements. We don't depend on somebody on high managing our community agreements. We all buy into them because we all believe in them. And so these community processes are really important. One of the things that we do within our circles that are held by other people as well is heart circles, where we just get together regularly and share from the heart how we feel about stuff, without any judgment, without any comment. You're just given a space to speak for as long as you wish, from your heart, saying what you feel, and all feelings are allowed. And again, there's no comment or judgment to say you shouldn't be feeling this, how dare you feel this, or maybe you should feel something else. And we find that this is the first step. It is the first step, it's not the complete process, but it is the first step in allowing ourselves to own our feelings and have our feelings acknowledged by our peers. So this is one small piece of technology, and there are many, many others. I'm just using this as an example, so you can see how we can start to build in system change. And I will say it's not easy to build in system change, because a lot of people will say, I don't want to share from the heart, or it's just talk, 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 or why should I tell you how I feel? I don't want to share from what I'm feeling, because otherwise people will use that against me. And so we have to build trust. We have to build belief in ourselves and each other. And then when we got that, we've got the basis for real solidarity, real faith in what we're doing. And that will then enable us to actually love together, and ultimately to actually fight in a non-violent way together to actually produce the changes that we need in society. Very often the left has been let down because we don't have this, you know, we talk about comradeship, but it's not real. It's just a word, and people just, you can, I've even used the word comrade used as an insult, you know, sardonically. All right, comrade, sit down, shut up, you know. I've heard enough from you, comrade. You know? So when we actually have that sense of real comradeship, real solidarity with each other, we won't talk in that way. We'll talk in a loving way, a respectful way to each other, and I believe that will be the basis for all the system change that we need, both loving towards each other and loving towards the earth.